Well, hello again. So we're still on our cold January dog walk, but this is Neurodiversity Part 3. And this time I want to talk about kind of the genetics, really, the family of neurodiversity. So, neurodiversity is a brain wiring issue. It tends to run in families, just like other genetic conditions. It's not a direct inheritance, something like Huntington's chorea, where if you've got the gene you will have it. It's a collection of genes, it's a collection of symptoms, but they tend to run in families. And once you diagnose one person in the family, you'll often start to think, oh yes, Auntie so-and-so's always been a bit like that, and oh gosh, yes, what about Cousin Joe, and so on. And you start to trace back through the families, and you can see that there were people who acted in certain ways or were a little bit different, some of whom struggled, some of whom didn't, as you go back through the generations. But neurodiversity also encompasses a number of different conditions, and they often overlap. So you've got the two biggies, ADHD and autism, but you've also got dyslexia, which is that struggling to read. It's not about intellectual ability, it's about tracking. So when you get to the end of one line, struggling to find the beginning of the next line, being able to take in the words, seeing the words as that code, and being able to read them fluently rather than the letters jumbling around and struggling to read what each word is. Because when we read, we don't actually read all the letters in the word. We tend to see the beginning and the end of the word, and our brain fills in the gap. And most of the time we're right, and occasionally we have to go back and actually read the word. But in dyslexics that can be much harder to do. You've got dyspraxia, which I suppose some people think of as being clumsiness. It's really about spatial awareness, spatial control, fine motor control, being able to control the fine muscles so that you can write neatly. So dyspraxics typically have very poor handwriting, may struggle to learn to tie laces. Doesn't mean that they can't learn to do those things. My husband is dyspraxic, he's learnt to juggle, he's learnt to dance. It just takes a lot longer, and he's never going to have the fine control to be really proficient at it. So he's chosen to do something called modern jive that doesn't require precise footwork, rather than ballroom, where he's got to have his body in a very specific position. That's dyspraxia. And then dyscalculia. So that's like dyslexia, but with numbers, not being able to process numbers, not being able to get the concept of mathematics and how mathematics fits together. And then also Tourette's has been put in with neurodiversity, and if you think about it you can see why, because people with Tourette's have an impulse to tick or shout out. Well, that's very similar to the impulsivity of ADHD, and you can hold it in for a while. So if you're in an important meeting or you're at a wedding or something, you could hold those tics in, but the pressure would build and build and build until you'd need to go outside and have a tick fest and just get all of that tics out of your system. But if you see someone with autism, they may need to stim. So that's a flapping or a spinning or a vocal stim, whistling or something like that. That it's a bit like an itch that you've just got to scratch, and you can hold off for so long and then you've just got to scratch it. And it can actually be very soothing and relieving and help you regulate yourself when you do that action or make that vocal stim. So you can see that there's a lot of crossover within them, and we often, when I'm assessing people with ADHD, I might often pick up, actually I suspect you may be dyslexic as well. Have you tried a coloured overlay? And you might need to try a whole different set of colours, very minimal differences between them, to find the colour that stabilises the words for you, that enables you to track, enables you to read more comfortably and it not be so exhausting to process that mental effort to read, which is why a lot of people with neurodiversity can struggle with reading, because they can't retain that information. They read the same paragraph over and over and over, and the words are going in but they're not meaning anything and they're not sticking in there. So that's the family of neurodiversity. Next time I think I might talk about women, and particularly late diagnosed women, because that's kind of quite a big thing in the media at the moment. So that will be neurodiversity number 4 coming up shortly.